Hello everybody, my name is Zen, and I have an important question for you, which is, has Diablo IV been saved? If you haven't known, there's been a bunch of patches over the last month or so that have really improved the game, and the game is now in its second season. We've already completed the first season, we're moving on to season number 2, and we're pushing forward towards BlizzCon, where maybe we'll hear some more about what's coming up next, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I just want to go over a quick history of the game so far, the general responses to it, how people have been feeling about it, and then of course we're going to talk about whether or not the game is in a good spot or not, and whether or not the future of the game is in question. And I'm also really interested in your thoughts. So definitely leave your comments down below and let me know what you think of Diablo 4 now that we've reached Season 2. And most importantly, have you continued to play it, right? Did you play the game when it came out at launch? And did you continue to play it afterwards? I think that those are really important metrics here, because if you played the game at launch, maybe you even just played through the story and then you just quit and you didn't play season 1, or you didn't even finish the game, or maybe you did finish the story, you finished season 1 and then you quit after that. I'm really curious about that. Oh, also, second thing, have you ever hit level 100? Is that a thing that you did in season 1, pre-season, and then within season 2? Those are all important things that I'm really interested in knowing your thoughts on. But let's quickly jump back to the launch of the game, which wasn't bad by any means. I think it was just kind of, it's a game, it's out. And in a year in which we have had banger after banger for games, it is hard to look at what is ostensibly just it's a good game. It's a game. It's functional. It's fun. There were some issues with it, but there was nothing like glaringly wrong with it. It worked and people could play it, but there were just little nitpick things here and there, or major stumble blocks along the way, leveling up that caused the game to really not land for some people, right? But was it broken? No, not really. And it was a suitable game. Was it a great entry into Diablo? Well, that's yet to be told. That story is unfolding as we currently talk about this. But yeah, the launch was okay, and honestly, could have been a lot worse. Definitely could have been a lot worse. But then we got games like Spider-Man 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Starfield was pretty Actually, I would compare Starfield to Diablo 4 launch pretty closely. I think that those are fairly relative in terms of, what kind of games we're getting this year. Like, those are not bad games. Starfield's not a bad game, but in comparison to everything else, oh my goodness, have you played Alan Wake 2? That's there's some really good games this year. Super Mario Wonder, another great one. And there's more games coming, and we just, in a year of amazing games, when a game just doesn't blow you away, it's going to feel lesser than. And that is honestly exactly what happened at launch for Diablo 4. And there's nothing wrong with that. And honestly, I think it's important to say, there's nothing wrong with playing a game and kind of enjoying it for what it was, and then just going and playing something else. Again, we've got plenty of games this year to go enjoy. But Diablo 4 is a live service game. This is a game that is going to continue to get updates and patches and more content, and they do really want you to continue playing. Obviously, they want you to spend money on their in-game shop, but there is no pay-to-win mechanics here. This is suitably a Diablo game where you're going to log in, you're going to get some loot, you're going to have some fun, and even if you're not throwing any money at the battle pass or anything like that, you're still enjoying the game just as much as everybody else. You just maybe don't have as cool cosmetic items as some other people. But there are, again, plenty of stuff in the game already that is cool. So do you really need it? No, not really. It's just kind of an additional thing. But it is a game that is going, like I said, to continue to get updates. So you can't really compare it to a single player title necessarily, because this is a game that anticipates that you're going to keep coming back to it. So we have to keep reevaluating where it's at over the next, several months, over the next year, over the next 5 years, and kind of see how it evolves. Because Diablo 3 is a really good example of a game that had the same kind of, it had a disastrous launch and then a disastrous year where we had the real money auction house and everything was bad about that game. There was a lot to like with the combat and some of the mechanics with how the game played, but it was really bad. And then Reaper of Souls came out and just fixed 99% of the issues, and then just update after update made that game so good. And actually, I think that there's nothing wrong with that. Inherently, that's how games are made right now, unfortunately. And we see this in many titles. You can look at, I think No Man's Sky is actually a pretty good story to look at here. No Man's Sky came out, was absolutely bad. It was not hitting any of the marks that they wanted to. And then just, they kept their heads down and just update after update after update after update. It just keeps getting better and better. And now I would argue that in this year, in 2023, if you had $25 to spend and you're like, I need a game that is going to keep me going for a very long time, and I'm going to have a bunch of content, and I'm going to feel really satisfied with that $25 purchase, it would be hard to go wrong to say, go pick up No Man's Sky on sale, because it's frequently on sale for about $25. And that game is incredible now because of all the updates. It's really, really good. If you've not gone back to it, I do highly recommend it. And that's not the only game that has had a success story recently. And it's not the only game that's going to, be the tentpole for that. We had Cyberpunk, again, launched really bad, lots of issues. They patched and patched and patched, and now Phantom Liberty came out, and it's really, really good. This is just a reoccurring story throughout the industry because, unfortunately, games are really expensive and complicated to make. And if a game studio had infinite time to make a game, sure, they would arrive at a fairly good game when it launches. However, a lot of the player feedback, a lot of the people playing the game and just progressing through gameplay cycles over and over and over again, like you see in Diablo, it really refines the experience. It gives the people working on the game a lot of data and a lot of information, especially through feedback of what is good and what is not, and where they can hammer in and refine, and where they just need to kind of fix things or completely redo stuff. And again, Diablo IV was not a bad game at launch. It was actually a great launch, and I think the story was pretty good. There was a whole middle bit in the story that I felt was unnecessary, and I didn't like. I've already expressed my opinions on that, but I thought the end of the story was really good, and I'm excited to see where it goes, especially because we are getting story beats in the seasons, and then we know that there are expansions coming, so that kind of stuff has me very excited. I'm really anticipating what comes next with this Diablo IV story. I like the darkness of this game. I like the adult themes that they have. I think it works really well for this world. And just because, some weird random things within the game, especially the gameplay loops, had me very turned off on the game within the first couple months, that's not to say that those things can't be fixed, and whether or not they have already been fixed. So with the latest couple updates, I would say the game has massively increased its playability. There are an infinite amount of little tiny changes that are adding up to make really huge impacts on the game, such as, your horse not being retarded anymore. You can mount it faster. The cooldowns are faster. You move faster on it. Your actual attack on your mount is faster. So everything just kind of feels a little bit more playable when you're playing with your mount, which means that there's less friction when you're playing the game, right? You're not having to fight your stupid horse a lot of the time just to get from point A to point B. And that little tiny adjustment makes a big difference in the grand scheme of all of the things together. You know, getting loot and leveling up and all of this stuff feels better because, you know, getting loot feels better. I'm no longer having to pick up just infinite gems and just have my inventory just covered in gems because gems no longer drop. It drops a resource that is just put into your like little materials bag. And then you can use that material to make whatever gems that you need when you need the gems, which is really nice. That's a very, very nice quality of life change that, in addition to the XP bonuses, which you level so fast right now, it's really nice in comparison to Season 1 and preseason, that in Season 2, leveling up just actually feels a lot of fun. You're constantly getting those rewards of new skill points, new Paragon points, and whatnot. And because you're moving much faster, you're not really feeling like, oh, this is a huge slog. Obviously, as you get closer to level 100, that slog starts kind of creeping back in, but at least you have felt like you've gotten there faster. So it feels a little bit more rewarding to continue to play and continue to grind and continue to get your loot, because you're not feeling like I'm just doing this same thing for like so many hours just to gain a level. You definitely have gotten to that point a lot quicker, so you're less burnt out on that experience. And then there are more just like end game targeted things that have changed that are really nice. Like you can focus target on specific items to farm, specific unique items to farm, because you know that you can go to bosses and those bosses will generally have a higher chance to drop whatever specific item you're looking for. And there's the fact that when you're going amongst the world now, there's more stuff to do because there's now more end game bosses to clear, which is really nice. And then there's the seasonal stuff too that is really added to the experience. There's the new blood harvest, which is kind of like the other world events that they had kind of all mixed into one. You know, you got the quests and whatnot, and the blood tide is this like, or is it, sorry, the blood harvest, or is it called blood tide? I don't remember. Is this amalgamation of these different events that is always active on the map, which means that you're not necessarily feeling like you have to go and do it. It's you see it up, and you know you need some materials from it, or you need to continue down this new bounty board thing that they have for this particular season, or you need to level up your powers, your vampiric powers for this season. And you just look at it and you go, oh, I could go do that, rather than feeling like you necessarily have to. It's just it's an option for you to go do because it's always active and it changes zones frequently. The only unfortunate thing about that event, in my opinion, is that the little quest things that they have for it are fairly repetitive. They're almost always the same ones, and you're basically doing the same thing in it. However, it is a step in the right direction of adding additional content to the end game. And not to mention the fact that there's a new patch that adds like a whole target dummy, so you could test your stuff on that. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on because these patch notes are insanely massive. It would take you forever to read through them. And honestly, I don't recommend doing that. Just hit the notes that you want to. You know, find your class that you're particularly interested in and go read those notes and whatnot. But what we're seeing here is the story starting to unfold for Diablo IV, which is that the game launched in a state. It's like, okay, yeah, it's Diablo IV. Actually, I have a good little side note about that, which is that when the game first launched, I have a local game store that I go and play tabletop games at, specifically wargaming and whatnot. It's board games kind of stuff, right? So not like a video game store. And we one day were just sitting around waiting for one of our other players to show up for something. And, Diablo 4 had just launched. It was like a week out from the launch. And I asked them, I was like, oh, you guys playing Diablo? And they're like, oh, yeah. We're playing through it. It's fine. And I asked them their opinion. And both of the two people that were there currently, and then the two that showed up thereafter, after I asked their opinion, they all actually said the same thing, which was, it's okay. They're enjoying the story for what it's worth, and when they get to the end, they don't plan on playing anymore. And if they want to get their Diablo fix in, they'll just jump in on Diablo 3 seasons. And I found that very interesting because, you ask somebody 10 years ago what their thoughts are on Diablo 3, and that experience is going to change very, very, very much. So, you know, you have that story unfolding for Diablo 3. People really do like the season. I'm one of them. I like Diablo 3 seasons. I find them very entertaining. But there is something that I do like a lot about Diablo 4 that makes me want to focus my time into that game instead. And we are seeing the same kind of events happen, that play out. You know, to a lesser degree, the game is not as bad, right, as Diablo 3 is at launch. However, we are seeing updates to the game that are making it more playable, more interesting, more respecting of your time. That's a big note. We'll put a pin in that. I want to talk about that in just a moment. But I'm feeling like with this latest update, or latest couple updates, like Diablo 4 feels really fun to play now. And this is also compounded by a thing that I will confess here, which is that when I did Season 1, I decided, you know what, I'm not going to play my rogue, because I leveled the rogue at launch, and I was like, let's try something different. So I decided to play the class that I had the least amount of time in, which was the druid. And honestly, that was a big mistake. I did not really enjoy the druid as much as I thought I would. And I got right to the end of the season, and I was just like, man, I made the biggest mistake. I'm really not enjoying this game, on top of the fact that I just didn't really have a whole lot of time in Season 1 to put into it. And then, you know, I finished my seasonal journey and all that stuff, which is cool, right? We got it done, but it felt like a chore. And then I jumped in on Season 2 with the rogue again. I was like, right, yes, I remember. I actually do enjoy this game, and with all these other additional updates, it feels really fun to play. So for sure, make sure that you're playing the class that you enjoy. Definitely, you know, try the other classes and feel them out and kind of see where you land. But if you're feeling like the game is a bit of a slog, it might be because you're playing the wrong class. It might be because that class is not necessarily speaking to you and your play style. It's okay to try something different. But let's quickly loop back around to the respecting of time thing. So for those of you who are on the channel regularly and you watch my stuff daily, because I upload a video every single day, I've done that for the last 12 years. I've never missed a day. You will know that I, at this point, run my own business. I have my own 3D printing business where I 3D print miniatures and terrain and other random doodads and whatnot for people through an Etsy shop, specifically for D&D or wargaming. And then I also do commission painting for those things, and I'm a high tier commission painter for that, and that takes up all of my time. I am constantly busy. For painting, I'm booked several months out, and then for the printing stuff, it's just order after order after order, and I'm doing 99% of this by myself. So I'm currently working over 10 hours a day usually, but recently I've been trying out this thing where I work really hard for 4 days, and then I take a 3-day weekend. So I take Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. But that is because I take that time to either do things around the house. You know, we bought a house back in February, a brand new house. It's new construction. So like we're improving things and, you know, getting things within the house that we'd like them to be, or I'm hanging out with the wife and the kids. And on Saturdays, I go to the game store and I play some games for a couple hours. So it's like, I'm really busy, and what time do I have to jump in to play a game is very limited. So when the game launched and the leveling was pretty bad, I felt quick burnout, because I was like, I do not feel like this game is respecting my time. For the amount of time I'm putting in, I'm not getting enough out of it. It just felt like a huge slog. Season 1 came about, fixed a little bit of that. It made it a tiny bit better. Same issues though, man, you get just like even past level 60 and it just feels like it takes a lot of time out of you. And I wasn't feeling like I was getting that back. I felt like I was putting time in and I wasn't getting much enjoyment out of it. But I felt like I had to do it because I wanted to finish my season. And now Season 2 is here, and I feel like this game absolutely respects my time, 100%. It could be better. You know, leveling can be faster still. There are things that can be improved. There are little things that have been improved, such as like when you start a nightmare dungeon, it automatically, when you click it on the map, puts you inside of the dungeon rather than outside of it. So you're only hitting one load screen rather than two. That's a nice little time improvement thing there. But for someone who is so busy and doesn't have a whole lot of time to play this game that I want to play, it is respecting my time better in Season 2 than it was, and I expect that to continue to improve as we go along. So I think that is a very important to note, because I suspect a huge majority of you guys have not actually got a character to level 100, and neither have I. I got pretty close, but I'm not there yet. And, you know, this is something that I've been considering pretty heavily over the last month, over October, and, you know, a little bit into September as well, is that this game is not necessarily like No Man's Sky. It's not necessarily like Diablo 3. Like, those stories are very specific to those games, and honestly, each of these stories is going to be specific to each of their games. But I feel like what this most aligns with, in a weird way, just because you know, at launch it was okay, and now it's, you know, slowly improving over time, is not any of those games. It's actually Civilization. If you are a person who's played Civilization, you may know that when a new Civ game comes out, it generally is a worse game than the game previous for quite some time. It at least takes an expansion or two in some cases to get up to the same quality or better than the previous game. Great example is Civ 5 to Civ 6. This is debatable. There's plenty of people who like Civ 5 over Civ 6. I understand that. There's reasons for that. There are very valid reasons for that. But if you were to take the two games side by side and just at face value, when Civ 5 was in its prime and then Civ 6 came out, Civ 6 was the absolute superior game from particular aspects, and those particular aspects got improved when the expansions came out. But Civ 5 was the better overall experience. So it took 1-2 expansions to make Civ 6 a better experience, and then now it's a bit more split. You know, a lot of people enjoy Civilization 6. It's a great game. A lot of people enjoy Civilization 5 and continue to play that. That's totally fine, and that's a great game. But it's going to be the same thing when the next Civilization comes out, which we know they're working on. It's going to be a bad experience in comparison to Civilization 6, and we're going to have to probably get an expansion or two before there's enough quality of life stuff, because this is compounding. Right, quality of life changes are compounding, and the more that enter the game, the more playable and more fun the game will become. But that can only happen over time. It's not just going to happen overnight, right? And they can't launch a game like that, because it's unfortunately not how game development necessarily works, especially when you have investors and you know, a publisher and whatnot to answer to. You can't just take your time to get a game up to a standard. Star Citizen is attempting to do that, and I doubt that game is ever coming out. But the thing with this is it's going to be like Civ 7 or whatever it is, which is like Diablo 4. It's going to launch, it's going to be serviceable, it's going to be fine, and then the more updates, the more expansions that come out, the game is going to get better and better and better. And it's with that I want to loop back around to my original point. Is Diablo 4 saved? Well, I think that's a little extreme. That's obviously can be used very clickbaity for a video title or whatever, but is it? No, not yet. But it's on its way, and it's going to continue to be on its way for every update that comes out. And that's positive. That is a very nice thing to see, because it shows us the roadmap for the game. It shows us that with each recurring update, with each potential expansion, with everything as far as seasons are concerned, the game is going to continue to improve and continue to get better and better and better, which means that you as a player may jump into Season 2 and be like, oh, this is better, but I'm still not into this. It's totally fine. You can go play the myriad of other freaking fantastic, like, record-breaking titles that are coming out this year. Or, you know, you can just kind of sit on it for a while, come back in a couple seasons, and then try it, and then see is this enough for me? Is this now a game that I want to pump some time into? And if you're still like, no, not necessarily, because I'm just having a hard time getting into this game or getting into Diablo in general, then just take a break. Go play some other games for sure. Or you know, are the kind of person like me where you really love playing Diablo, it is a huge part of your life, then, you may get into these patches a lot quicker like I am. You know, when it comes to season 2, I think that this is that turning point. It's that fulcrum point for me where I'm like, I was kind of on the back foot, kind of not really that interested and trying to put as much time into it as I could on my side. And now with these latest updates, I'm actively seeking out game time. I'm like, man, I really want to jump in and actually play and have fun with this, because I'm now enjoying the game. Where before it started to feel like a chore, now it feels like a treat. Where I get to log in and I get to play Diablo for a little bit, level up a little bit, get some loot, and just kind of progress my character, get the season pass stuff done, and then move on after that. You know, move into the next season and enjoy the new updates and the new changes and everything from there. I think that's a really positive place to be in, where you can see that you know, the stretch of time that it may take, where you can see like season 3 might be the season for me, or season 4 might be the season for me, but there is going to be a season coming up where there is enough updates that is that turning point for you. And that's a good feeling, especially if you've already bought the game and you kind of felt a little bit burned at launch of like, I got through the story and then I just didn't feel like playing anymore. So is it saved? Well, I think it's pretty close for me. For you, that might be a different story, but that goes back into the comments at the beginning of the video. I'm really curious to see, what are your thoughts on this new season? Have you played it? Have you continued to play the game? Again, have you ever gotten a character to level 100? Is this a season that you are enjoying or not enjoying? And like, leave your thoughts, because I think it is an interesting discussion. To not like hate on the game, but just to express some thoughts and be very level-headed and just be like, is this a title for me right now or in the future or at all? You know, be honest and just figure out where you stand on this game that in a year of insane games, is it going to make a splash in the long run for you or not? But thank you very much for watching all the way to the end of the video. If you want to see more stuff like this, make sure you subscribe. BlizzCon is coming up real soon here, and I will be there, and I'm going to come back and share my thoughts on whatever announcements happen, and then, you know, whatever other announcements happen. Like, best case scenario for me, what will make BlizzCon with the new Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard would be to have Phil Spencer there. That would be great. That would be really cool. But outside of that, no, I don't really have any expectations, but I'm excited to talk about stuff when I get back and put up some videos. So make sure you're subscribed in order to see all that. But with all that being said, thank you very much, and we shall see you all next time.